What is going on, New York Yankees fans? Welcome back to another video on the Big Blue in the Bronx YouTube channel. Obviously, follow the socials up top if you guys haven't already hit that like button. Comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or drops. Doing some new camera work here. This is the camera I usually use for the live streams, Boys in the Big Apple, calling Yankees games, calling NFL games. So please let me know, is the brightness too much? Is it too small? I don't know. Just leave me some feedback, please. Much appreciated. Only about 38% of you guys are subscribed to the channel, so please help out the algorithm and subscribe. In this video, I'm going to only react a little bit to the New York Yankees' loss against the Red Sox because I really have nothing to say. It's just sheer disappointment. I'm not going to cry about it. No. Because my expectations for this team were not very high once they started playing like garbage. And that started way earlier in the year, so, it's not like, oh, this team's going to go to the World Series and win 100 games. I didn't even say that they were going to win 100 games, and look, they didn't. They fell short a couple of games. They fell short 9 games, actually. Actually, it was 8. 8 games they fell short. So, in terms of the reaction, I'm not going to do much of a reaction. It's the same shit, different day. Giancarlo Stanton, he hits 2 singles, and he launches a home run to right field. I think he was, 3 for 4 on the night. So, carried the team. Rizzo, in my opinion, should not have been batting leadoff, even though he did hit a homer, so good for him there. And the rest of the lineup was dead silent. I don't know how you put up a lineup like that. It's interesting. It's disappointing. It's not surprising. The pitching, the management of the bullpen, I'm not going to agree with at all. Garrett Cole, obviously, he was not good. You pay him $345 million, or how many millions of dollars you pay him just to pitch in a situation like that and only go 2 innings. It's depressing. But they went to Clay Holmes after, and he pitched well. But the problem is, in that situation, maybe I would have went to Severino because you need length, and you don't need to waste a ton of pitchers, But after Holmes, who did a pretty nice job, they went to Sevy. He did good in 1 inning, then started screwing up a little bit. They took him out after that double. Then I believe they put in Loizaga, and he pitched for a little bit. Then they went to Chad Green. I think Chad Green pitched. I don't know if they were warming him up, but, they used 4, 5, 6 pitchers when you really didn't need to. You could have stuck to Severino, could have stuck to this guy, could have stuck to that guy. But I'm a content creator. I'm not a manager of a major league team. So I'm going to showcase a pyramid of blame. I did this with the Giants in a verbal matter. I'm going to do it with the New York Yankees in a physical matter. You'll see a graphic. It may not be good. It may be a little bootleg, but I have some notes here, so at least I'm not talking out of my ass. So real quickly, just be patient with the transition. Got a transition right here. Maybe, yeah, this side's a little friendlier. Okay, so go a little like that. I think that's good. Okay, so here is the pyramid of blame. Not too great of a graphic, but it still gets the point across. So, at the bottom, you have the players. You have Aaron Boone, you have Brian Cashman, you have Hal Steinbrenner. We're going to go over all of it. So, let's start with the players, because it does not start at the bottom. It starts at the top, but the players are what, you don't reflect on the manager. You don't reflect on the GM without talking about the players. And the players, here's what I blame them for. Exceptionally streaky, so you don't have a consistent season on the Yankees, and there's a couple of guys that are at fault of this. Gary Sanchez had a huge hitting streak, didn't do shit for the rest of the season. Gleyber Torres, he had a hitting streak of his own, I believe. Didn't do shit the rest of the season. Chapman had a good streak, then he had a bad streak, had a good streak, had a bad streak. So, incredibly streaky is not going to get you anywhere in the MLB. You have to be consistent, at least to some standard. So that's where I compliment guys like Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, who consistently carry the team this year. Judge, I believe, had an IL stint, but Stanton actually stayed healthy. And he played most of the 162. And with that being said, he wasn't like Evan Ingram for the Giants. For my Giants fans out there who just sucked in all the 16 games he played last year, Stanton actually did pretty good. And I feel like, hey, I was hard on him a little at times, but you know what? Better that you're hard on someone than soft on someone, right? So those are my comments on that. Not running out ground balls to first base. Two of these guys that I put below are definitely people that portray that. I don't mean to be bad with my vocabulary here, but Gleyber Torres, there are times he just doesn't try. Gary Sanchez doesn't run balls out to first. I mean, the biggest example, I apologize for stumbling, the biggest example of this is that 2018 game where Hicks was safe at second and Sanchez was out at first. If you had Joe Girardi as the manager, or any other tough guy, if you had Tony La Russa or some of these other guys, he would have been benched and stuff like that. You know, he would have been benched, he would have been talked to, he would have been ripped, and there are some limits to ripping players, but if Girardi or someone else ripped Sanchez and said he has to do better, or, you know, he didn't run out that ball, that's a brutal mistake, I would have said, hey, I agree with him. There's nothing wrong with what he said. But Aaron Boone placed him on IL the day after. And Sanchez continually does not run out baseballs. He doesn't have good at-bats. He swings it high and low and, you know, pitches that are all over the square. Whether they're outside the square, they're below the square, they're above the square. He does not... He hits homers, and that's about it. I think I don't know. I don't want to compare him to Joey Gallo because Joey Gallo hits more home runs and he gets walks, but Sanchez will have a hit here and there that kind of lifts him over Gallo at some standard. But once again, two hitters with not necessarily the greatest of batting averages and just stats overall. Not enough excitement and very dull. You saw in the Red Sox dugout, they had the little garbage can, the recycling can. After every home run and RBI, they're just pushing him. You know. I'm a Yankees fan. I genuinely hate the Red Sox, but they played a better game and they have more excitement. You know, at times when a player would hit a home run, no matter the situation, players wouldn't do anything. When I think it was Stanton hit that home run, or was Rizzo, one of the other guys. When it was Stanton or Rizzo hit the home run, the on-deck batters went like this. The dugout's just completely emotionless. It's like, you know, being at a funeral, for lack of better words. It's like being at a funeral. Nobody's, full of emotion. Nobody's even they're just out of the game. They're just not even paying attention at this point. So that's what I blame on the players. Exceptionally streaky, not changing their plate approach. I'll give credit to Sanchez. He fixed that thing where he was doing that kick thing, but it never really panned out for the long run. He had that big streak of his, but never panned out for the long run. So I can't really say that, it just fixed everything, But other than Judge and Stanton, nobody fixes their plate approach. Gio Urshela had a down year offensively. DJ LeMahieu was a big disappointment. Joey Gallo is just all or nothing. Aaron Hicks was trash before he landed on the IL for the rest of the season. And this is what you continually see out of the players. No change in the plate approach. And I get coaches are there. We're definitely going to blame the coaches in the next part of the pyramid. But it's on the players. The players have to execute, and they have to take it upon themselves. They're not robots. They're not babies. So with that being said, let's go to Aaron Boone, who is on the third level, but he definitely deserves a lot of blame. So the corporate answers. This is probably the least of my grievances with him, but it's a big grievance, right? So when he talks to the media, and you can make your narratives, Cashman, he controls everything. Hal, he controls everything. The analytics, blah, blah, blah. Even if that was true, give us an answer that inspires us. Give us an answer that's serious. The Field of Dreams game was one of the biggest examples of that. I'm disappointed, but I'm just happy to be here. Must be happy to be anywhere then. You get to travel all over the country. I'm just happy to be here. Many people don't travel. I'm just happy to be here. No sense of urgency, but also, once again, that reflects not just on him, but the players as well, and Cashman as well, because he brings in those players. So, corporate answers, and the media doesn't press them. When we talk about New York media and the New York market, we're not talking about the media anymore. We can't talk about the media because it's Ryan Rucco, it's all these guys that ask the stupid questions. Lindsay Adler, Brian Hoke will occasionally give him a nice question. But just the corporate answers, and we're talking about the New York media. When you talk about the New York market from now on, ladies and gentlemen, talk about the fans and talk about the city. Don't talk about the media. don't talk about the media, because unless it's First Take or this show or that show, they're not going to talk. Well, actually, yeah, they talk about it on the Michael K show, but they really can't say their right opinion because Yes Network owns their ass. So, sorry to be blunt about that, but it's time to tell the truth. And I've done that most of the season. I've done that all season. A lot of people just ride the hot hand and then will go back to being very inconsistent with their views, but that's not the point right now. The lineup construction. You have Rizzo hitting first against the Red Sox. There's a lot of other cases this season where you're having Gardner and then LeMahieu and then Gallo. You know, Gallo was on that big cold streak. And him as a player, he doesn't do much else than walk and hit homers. But he was on a super cold streak. He was like 0 for 14, 0 for 21. And they would not move him down from the 4 spot, the 3 spot, the 2 spot. They would not move him down. It took them so many games that they finally moved him to the 5th and 6th spot. Same thing with DJ LeMahieu. But I don't know that the leadoff hitter in place for LeMahieu did actually better than him. But, you know, that's just the story of this whole Yankee team. Team plays with no urgency. That ultimately reflects on the manager. If Aaron Boone had the balls to light a fire under some of these guys' asses, you'd see them play with urgency. But, you know, swinging at the first pitch in the 9th inning, that just shows you want to get the game over. You're not aggressive. You just want to get the game over. Gleyber Torres takes a ball, I think, against the Red Sox, right? His final at-bat of 2021. It's a fly ball to right field the next pitch. Do you not have any intentions to start a rally? I mean, seriously. But the team plays with no urgency, the constant defensive errors. Offensively, they're not changing their swing. And also the bad coaching staff as well. One of the biggest guys that reflects on Aaron Boone and who he hired, I think it was who he hired. If it wasn't him, it was Cashman. But Phil Nevin. He's been horrible as a third base coach. And just the staff is terrible. If it wasn't for Nevin being such a bad third base coach, I'd say, okay, let him be the next manager. But Marcus Thames should have been gone a long time ago. He's apparently not doing anything. Well, he's not doing anything because, you know, the players are not doing anything. They're not changing their swings, changing the philosophy of their swing. Gary Sanchez did it. I'll give credits to him, but it didn't really affect the Yankees in a big manner. It wasn't a long-term solution. It was a short-term solution. But Marcus Thames, I mean, he had one decent year with the Yankees and was a flop the rest of his career. So I don't know why the Yankees hired him. I don't know what they saw there. But just the general staff, you know, nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about, really. Not anything positive, let's say. So the next guy is Brian Cashman. And I'm not going to go into too much of like, oh, contracts and stats. Just as a reminder, if you guys have been looking for that, I'll produce another video in like a couple of days where it's like top 5 moves the Yankees need to make. So let's keep going. Brian Cashman. This is a long list because he's been with the Yankees longer and there's a lot of bad moves on here. So let's start with player development, which honestly can just be put into everything else because one thing affects another thing that affects another thing. Is like the domino effect. Player development. We're talking prospects, guys that are supposed to be good. We're also talking first-round picks. Let's go over the list. Blake Rutherford, who was traded for David Robertson and Todd Frazier. Both guys only worked out half a year in 2017. So he, I believe, is still in Chicago. If he's not, he's somewhere else. Same thing with Ian Clarkin. Cito Culver, first-round pick. Dante Bichetti, junior first-round pick. They picked him over somebody. I think it was either Bo Bichetti or they picked somebody. They picked the wrong Bichetti. Let's just leave it at that. Doug Bernier, Jesus Montero, Ian Kennedy, Phil Hughes, if you want to make the case, Rob Refsnyder, Eric Jagelo, David Adams, Zoilo Almonte, Vidal Nuno, Manny Benuelos. 2 other guys that, you know, really have turned into something at points in time, like 2017, Clint Frazier, and Miguel Andujar in 2018. But when their value was high, he was so anti-trading them. That's the problem I have, and that's my next point, actually. They, as in the Yankees organization, if you will, but also mainly Brian Cashman, because he's facilitating these moves, he's so late to trade these prospects that they have no value anymore. It's like, oh, we're going to trade this bust first-round pick for this guy. For instance, that was Billy Price for B.J. Hill, if you want to use Giants terms, but B.J. Hill is actually doing some good stuff in Cincinnati. But Chance Adams, he was supposed to be one of the best pitching prospects for the New York Yankees. What happened to him? He got traded to the Royals, and he might be out of baseball right now. He might even be in a system. He might be in Double-A or Triple-A for some other team that I don't know. But he's just not with the Yankees anymore. Some of these other guys, you guys can make example upon example. Clint Frazier and Andujar. The fact that you're putting Andujar in left field just shows you don't have a spot for him on the roster. If he's not playing third base, if he's not getting better at third base, you just trade him. I get he's a good hitter. He's streaky at points. But if he's not a part of your future, just trade him. Trade him to the Rockies. Trade him to the Pirates. Clint Frazier, he was a sheer disappointment this year, but I feel like it's somewhat of a mental block because Brett Gardner was brought back this year, and he really shouldn't have been. But what it will be, it'll be. Ruining confidence in guys like Divey and Luis Hill. So I'm not going to blame him too much for Divey. I will blame him for Hill, though. He was great. He was just scoreless in the major leagues within his first couple of appearances. They send him down. They don't bring him up for a couple of weeks. They bring him back up. He gives up a bunch of runs. I think it was against the Blue Jays, if I'm not mistaken. Gives up a bunch of runs. He's not the same person because you diminished his confidence. You diminished his confidence, and he's like, well, they sent me down for a reason, so I got to work on something. And that something turned into a big freaking problem for the New York Yankees. And this is what happens. With the Divey thing, you could blame that on Aaron Boone mostly. But Brian Cashman probably had some role in it. I mean, it's not like he's just non-existent in terms of making those moves or facilitating those moves, whatever. But Divey Garcia, we all know, Game 2 of the ALDS last year, has Divey Garcia in one inning. Jay Happ, let's bring you in. And the game is totally done from there. But with that being said, making trades that only work out half a year, and I understand some of these trades are, oh, we got to make the playoffs, we got to do this, I understand that a lot of these trades are meant for just the one half a year, but when you keep a player over half a year and it doesn't work out, obviously it's going to reflect on your resume. So let's bring up a couple of players. Edwin Encarnacion, they kept him over Luke Voit on the playoff roster in 2019 for the ALCS, was absolutely garbage. He was incredibly streaky in 2019, but nonetheless, they traded for him, so they had to keep him on the playoff roster. Lance Lynn, who they let go of, and now is a stud in Chicago. They traded, I think, Tyler Austin for him. Whatever. Jay Happ, incredible waste. He also, I think, re-signed, and that was a crappy free agent contract. Sonny Gray could not handle the New York media, the New York market. Worked out for 2017, was garbage afterwards, ends up ripping the Yankees. Jaime Garcia wasn't much of anything. James Paxton, in 2020, he was shit when he pitched. In 2019, he was good. In 2020, he was shit. Obviously the first start kind of reflected how his season would go. Another guy that I want to bring up on the list, late to trade prospects, Justice Sheffield. One of the guys that I thought possibly could be something. And obviously my thoughts are different from theirs. They're in there. They're looking at him. They're scouting him better than I am. But if you knew he was going to be a part of the future, I don't know. Late to trade prospects, that was the point already. But in my opinion, I don't agree with acquiring Gallo because he's incredibly streaky at times. And even when he is streaky, he only hits home runs. I know that's a very boomer saying, but it doesn't do much from your offense when you have a bunch of all or nothing guys. And Andrew Heaney, a lot of people saying, oh, well, maybe they didn't get enough bullpen work or they didn't get enough bullpen guys, and Andrew Heaney is all they were left with. Well, you traded two prospects that both made their major league debuts. I don't know how they did. It was Elvis Peguero and Jansen Junk, but Andrew Heaney was DFA'd. What does that show you? You gave up two prospects for a freaking flop, a freaking pillow. He was shit. He had his good outings. He got crushed by the White Sox, and once again, he had his good outings. He would be nasty, but the problem was also is that he was garbage against the Orioles. He gave up 4 home runs in the matter of, I think, 3 innings. If you can't pitch against the Orioles, you're not going to pitch against the Rail Riders. So I never got the Heaney trade. Analytics department and the team construction / philosophy. He didn't bring back Joe Girardi because he was too hard on the players, and Someone made this point on Twitter. That's Nicky Snacks. Go follow him. He's a Yankees, Knicks, Giants fan. Does some talking Giants and bleeding blue. He said, if Aaron Boone is staying, I'm going to be mad because Joe Girardi essentially was not brought back for overachieving in 2017 with a rebuilding roster. I agree with that 100%. They got rid of him because he was too hard on the players, or at least that was one of the reasons, right? So now you have this analytics philosophy. You know, Aaron Boone, first-time manager, he's a softie. That all has gone to shit. They have not changed anything and have even downgraded in parts of the philosophy since Girardi's been gone. Gleyber Torres is not running out baseballs or ground balls, really. Gary Sanchez is not running out ground balls. Guys not playing with urgency. This is a reflection on the manager, a reflection on the philosophy. Great job, Brian Cashman, because somebody was mean to the players, because somebody ripped Gary Sanchez, someone pulled him aside and lit a fire under his ass. Just because that happened, you had to get rid of him. He was a consistent manager, and at least he would be reactive. When the New York media, or tough media, would ask him questions, he'd get pissed off. He still gets pissed off in Philly. And he would be able to elevate the talent even more. This roster isn't so badly talented. It's not, the Pirates or these other teams. But they're not executing because there's no urgency and there's no push from the coaching staff, including Aaron Boone, obviously. So, consistently relying on one-year wonders. 2020 was the ultimate showing of that, and a lot of people don't talk about it. Mike Ford had a good year in 2019. Mike Tauchman, all these other guys, right? Tyler Estrada, if you want to include him as well. 2020, all those guys just fell off the rails. Mike Tauchman, Mike Ford, all the one-year wonder guys, all the next man up guys, they failed. So what does Brian Cashman do? He waits another year. Aaron Hicks, one of the worst contracts, by the way. I forgot to go over free agent signings. We'll do that in just a minute, though. They relied on them again. And what happened? Tauchman got traded. Ford got traded. And you had to overspend at the deadline for some of these guys that have worked out or not worked out half a year. And it's just amazing. You're going to rely on a one-year wonder. And baseball is generally a game. MLB is just a league where you're going to rely on those one-year wonders, or at least rely, this guy's coming back from injury. He's going to be the same guy. It's not football. It's not basketball. It's baseball. But when you consistently see that the past year, Mike Ford, he wasn't hitting well. Mike Tauchman, he wasn't hitting well in 2020. Replace them. Estevan Florial, he's waiting in the minor leagues. Another guy they probably destroyed the confidence of. Waiting in the minor leagues. He wasn't hitting that well. I mean, he's hitting 220 in the minor leagues with lots of home runs. Came up and hit 300. Nope, let's send you back down. Crappy free agent signings. He made some good moves. He made some bad moves. That's all I'm going to say. Even if I rip Boone, if I rip Howell, if I rip Cashman, I'm talking about the bad and what's impacted this team. Because if I was talking, if the Yankees win the World Series, or if the Yankees won the World Series, I would be talking about all of the good. I'm talking about all of the bad because this has been them consistently over the past couple of years. But crappy free agent signings. Let's go through the list, everybody. J. Happ, Chris Carter, Aaron Hicks, A-Rod, A.J. Burnett, K. Igawa, Jay Bruce, Troy Tulowitzki, Jarrett Wright, Javier Vasquez, Carl Pavano, Kevin Brown, Kevin Youkilis, Kelly Johnson, Brian Roberts, Jacoby Ellsbury. And you could say, Chris Carter, he was only signed to $3 million. That's a point you can make, but they're put in a high leverage situation. They're put in a situation, he's going to be the starting DH. He's going to be the starting first baseman. And he's hitting like 190 with 6 home runs and let's just say 20 RBIs to start the season. So that didn't work out. That's literally a clone. Chris Carter was literally a clone of Edwin Encarnacion. Literally a clone. I think it was, 2 years later they acquired Encarnacion. But the crappy free agent signings, and one affects the other. I said this in the beginning. Player development affects the free agent signings because if you're not developing these first-round picks, if you're not developing these prospects, if they're not turning into anything, you have to go out and overspend in free agency. That's the only way you can win. And that is so the 90s. That is so a backwards philosophy. That is such a philosophy that is so old and outdated because now you see teams like the White Sox, teams like the Brewers, Teams across the league, they're developing players. They're hitting in free agency, but they don't have an urgency in free agency as much as the Yankees do because they're developing the players. They're developing their guys. Luis Robert, Jose Abreu. The list goes on and on. But the Yankees, they're not hitting on these prospects. They're not hitting on these first-round picks. So they got to go out and get these free agents and overspend for 1 year of solid production. The next guy is Hal Steinbrenner, and this is the final one. And he oversees everything, so he's at the top. Not blaming coaches, only players. Came out in the one press conference he did, or one of the only ones, said, well, this is on the players. Your coaches have nothing to do with what the players are doing? Hello? It's partially your fault, Cashman's as well, Boone's as well, that they're coaching them like it's a therapy session. Oh, you could do it. Oh, this, that, and the other thing. You could do it, whatever. Massaging their ego so they can do it. They think they can do it, but they're not being criticized when they make mistakes. Not at all. Gleyber Torres, Gary Sanchez, big examples. Taking people's fucking money. Constant, year after year, this team is streaky. They've sucked in Yankee standards, and he's just taking their money. $650 to sit behind the home plate, $9 for a milkshake at the stadium, $20 for a chicken bucket, $7 for a soda at the stadium. I get charging that type of money for drinks and stuff because it's New York. Everything's expensive. But at least have your team play up to the standard where you can actually charge your patrons that money. So, avoiding the luxury tax and penny pinching, but not at the trade deadline. Essentially rides with what Cashman was doing in terms of relying on the one-year wonders. He was relying on the one-year wonders, could not sign anybody in free agency. We were talking about guys. There was two guys, I forget their names now, they were outfielders. Michael Brantley was one, Kyle Schwarber was another. I didn't want Schwarber. Brantley was an okay option. He is an okay option. Eventually, he re-signed with the Astros. George Springer was another option, but he was a righty. But, you're going to penny pinch there, then you're going to spend at the deadline. Oh, now you don't have guys? But you're going to rely on Mike Ford, Mike Talkman, and all these other guys to produce. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't, because they got their head in their ass for no reason. Anyway, also accepting the standard of failing to go to the World Series. I sound spoiled as hell, and I don't care. This team has 27 rings for a reason. A lot of people use that excuse. I'm not going to use the excuse, 27 rings, that's why we're better than every MLB team ever. No. You need to play like you have 27 rings. You don't play like you have 27 rings, well, guess what? Nobody's going to want to see you. And there's not real protests anymore. In terms of, I'm not going to go to the stadium and spend my money. A lot of people do that, but it's not enough. Because people will constantly pay to see the New York Yankees. It's unfortunate. But that is my blame pyramid, guys. Tell me how you like it in the comments if you haven't already. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops video drops. Waiting on that announcement. I know I've been advertising it and clickbaiting it for the last few weeks, but waiting on an announcement possibly regarding Yankees content, regarding me, my brother, Boys in the Big Apple, 8:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Always talking sports. Join us. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Help out that algorithm. I'm going to do more Giant stuff. Tuesdays and Saturdays are the days for the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast for Giants. I might start doing it with the Yankees now that the offseason is arriving. So peace out, guys. See you later. Thanks for watching. Stay cool.